My children don't know. And then many of them pass away, so they kind of go in my memory, but then they don't go any further. Then I thought, well, you must know people that I didn't know. Now I remember Uncle Joe. He's probably the only one I remember,
Yeah.
offhand.
Yeah, but he was sweet.
Yeah.
If you
Well,
were,
first, okay, let's start with Uncle Joe. Tell me, who is Uncle Joe?
well, Mama Luz, she had two brothers. Uncle Manny never married. He was a quiet, very just serious kind of a guy. Liked to read and stuff like that. But Uncle Joe, from what I gathered, he didn't like going to school or whatever the case was. He was a little bit spoiled too. He was a little one. So he could barely write, but Uncle Manny had a gorgeous handwriting and stuff. You know, those days he used to have a good fist. You can become a bookkeeper or stuff like that. Yeah, but they were quiet people, but they were what's the word? Very decent, if you know what I mean. No drinking and cussing and carrying and stuff like that. But Uncle Manny, I think he used to serve mass and in Latin and stuff. But Uncle Joe didn't do that, you know. So Uncle Joe got married quite late. He was a confirmed bachelor, and he got Joe, a
Who he
door.
married? You might as well tell me.
Otelia Pereira, that's Johnny's
Right.
brother.
And what do you remember him as a child, this Uncle Joe? Why?
Well, I remember him as the only person who at Christmas would buy me we used to call it a dolly for 8 cents bit. I used to look forward every, and he was, you know, he's so poor, but he was so thoughtful. He was very affectionate. And Uncle Manny didn't go to the market and buy me a dolly, but Uncle Joe did, yeah.
Okay. Well, while we're on that side of the family, then this is Granny's brothers.
Yeah.
Tell me about Uncle Manny. What did he do then?
Well, you see, this is almost like a tragedy. He was a smart fellow, but they had this little land and they weren't conformed. They didn't fit into the role of being a farmer, eh? Um, Uncle Manny got jobs working in a shop or stuff like that because he was good at figures. But he didn't bestir himself to get married or anything. So he ended up quite, what's the word, sad, like lonely, and he didn't know to really. I don't know, you know. The story is, or people would say that Grandma Netta, and I think there's a bit of truth in that. She belonged to the cult of the male, eh? So these two brothers were there, and the Grandma Netta and Mama would cook and wash for them, you know, that type of thing. They didn't have much initiative. So, well, anyway, they were respected, though, and stuff like that. But that was about, we had Uncle Josie. I think he was a half brother or something, or
Uncle Josie is whose half brother
Gramanetta. But we
then?
could
So
come.
Grandmanetta was Granny's mother,
Mother, yes.
and her name was
Antonetta.
Antoinette
Gonzalez.
Gonsalves. And so she had Manuel and Joseph
The,
and Lucia.
Joseph Clemens, anyway.
Yes.
Yes. But I had a feeling she favored the boys.
Who's this other one? Uncle Josie.
That was another. I think it was Grandmanetta's half brother or something like that. But we knew he was a relative, and we used to be delighted when he was a bit of a rapscallion, but we loved him. Eh? He looked like Santa Claus, and he was full of humor. So we used to be glad just to see him coming. And then he sort of lived common law with this little Amerindian woman, Mother Stoll, the Bible reading. She used to remind me of Granny in the Comforts. We really enjoyed her because she used to come to watch over us if Mama go to town. Mother Stoll, we used to call her. She used to deliver babies. Of course, she wouldn't have a license, but she was supposed to be very good when you're delivering a baby and stuff like that. She's a little shrimp of a woman. But we enjoy those people because, I mean, let's face it, they used to brighten our lives. they didn't have any. She was okay, but Uncle Josie, he could do a little carpentry and whatnot, but not too much ambition. But we enjoyed him. But the real backbone of the family was the De Silvas, because they came from the big house. Grandpa came from Madeira, and very, very proper, you
So
know.
tell me, let, well, you can start anywhere, but let's start with Grandpa. So this is J.J.
JJ.
De Silva, and he was the first one to get a grant of land there
Yeah.
in 1887, if my memory is correct, on the records that I saw, and I took pictures of. I'll show them. But then after, within a few years, they started having children, and the first one, I think, was also named
No, he was
after
Johnny,
Johnny.
Uncle Johnny.
That's
Yeah.
Uncle Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, tell me a little bit about your grandfather before we go to Uncle Johnny.
Well, all we know about him, remember he spoke with a heavy accent, and
So he did speak English.
he had to learn it. But he spoke it and he wrote it well too. But he wasn't the kind. He was like Uncle Clarence, this kind of person. You didn't climb on his knees, but you went to him and you kissed his hand and you said, "Bid some grandpa," and he would say, "God bless you." That seems to be more than all the conversation I recall. Yeah. And so he would sit in his gallery chair, and children would pass from the school. Morning, grandpa. Morning, grandpa. Grandpa. He was the grandpa for the whole, but he wasn't really. He was just sitting in the gallery with a little a little hat on his head, and everybody telling him good morning or good afternoon and this that. They had a dog. Somebody gave them a dog, but the dog really was the community dog. But he was the name. He was the one that the boa constrictor swallowed. Oh, it was so sad. And our neighbors brought him and buried him in Grandpa's yard and stuff like that. Yeah.
So let's go to talk about Uncle Johnny. Uncle Johnny was the eldest.
Eldest, yeah.
Your father was down the line in the middle somewhere.
But you think about this isn't right. But Mama said when they got married, and I guess she was having 19, Papa, he would say, you really didn't want a son first because they're too much softies. Because apparently Johnny was a bit of a softie. Papa was the leader. And so anyway, the first thing to do is get married and get a huge family. And it's a terrible hardship. I could even, they lived in a little grand called Portland. And beautiful daughters, and Dolly and Carrie and all.
This is Johnny's children.
Johnny Sharon, lovely boys.
Tell me about Johnny.
Well, all we remember him was that he was good natured because he would call Mama Miss Sister, and he didn't have any yet. I think this Amy was more of a fiery one. I remember her. Yeah.
That's his wife, your aunt.
His wife, yes.
What was she like?
I remember her vaguely as a nice lady. Well, the child everybody likes. I think she used to make bread sometimes, but she lived at Charity, but I guess she had a terrible struggle. I don't know how they grew up so healthy, but you did have one son that used to get epilepsy. Was Frankie? I think and he died. And then I think a couple of the boys ended up at Muruka, grinding poverty. And one of them, I think, went
out. What's poverty like on the Pomeroon? Because, I mean, it's a place that grows things to eat.
Well,
fish in the river.
No, but when poverty, well, let's see, you didn't need much you can do without shoes and stuff like that. But you plant a little bit of cassava or something, and you're lucky if it. But they didn't seem to get into the farming way they should. They're like Salvi, Guyana one. Salvi used to annoy us.
And Salvi is Uncle Johnny's first,
yeah. And he he was bombastic, you know, he used to get on people's work. But of course, he was a bit of a philosopher. And so he could sing beautifully. He wanted to sing, I think, on the radio station. They had good ideas. There's no way. However, but it was, I remember Mama saying, I think he thought we got on her nerves. He came, of course, Papa died, and everybody thought she was the well off one. She had fracture. It's so funny story. Anyway, she said he came on it. Titty Loves, I came to borrow a specific sum of money. That kind of aggravation, you know. But we liked him. And we loved it. He played the guitar. I mean, we used to play a little ditty about the somebody stole somebody cassava or something.
I remember him showing up in Toronto at the 17th Station Road.
Yes, he just like that. Especially came in to the fort here. What was the fort?
Oh, Toronto, someplace.
Yeah, and got the bus. He was good. He was quite able. I had him to dinner, and then we took him around to Cyril. But I mean, it's no doubt.
Cyril was his brother?
My brother, yes, the younger brother, yeah. But there weren't. He was known for being he had a sense of humor, and really had a sense of humor. But he was also a bit bombastic because he had fine ideas how to run the world, you know. But in the meantime, he's not running it. Whereas you see the other,
so we skipped a generation now. We're on to Sally, but I really want to talk about the older people. So we're talking about Johnny and his wife's name.
Amy.
Mm-hmm. So what other uncles or aunts of your brothers or sisters or your father that you remember? I want to hear about them.
Well, I knew that Alexandrina died quite young.
Did you know her before she died?
No, but I knew her family and I knew her husband, Martin. He got married again promptly and got another.
Tell the story of Alexandrina then, if you know.
Well, all I know is this beautiful, was Claudia and what's the other one? That one that went to England. Very, with pretty curls and stuff like that. Of course, you always meet at Sunday Mass. That was the idea.
You're now talking about the children of Alexandrina.
Yeah.
Claudia was.
Well, they all.
Claudia married.
Johnny, yeah.
Johnny. What's his name? Mark.
Johnny Pereira.
Claudia married Johnny Pereira.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had not Claudia. Alexandrina married
Joseph Martin.
Joseph Martin.
Yeah.
And they had Claudia.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember. They're not a young girl.
It'll come to you. If it comes to you, just tell me.
Estelle. You missed Estelle.
Oh, Estelle used to live in Toronto?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
The lovely, and your husband was Leo. But their family
were. So they were cousins to you.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't know Alexandrina.
No, but I knew of her.
Yes.
Like I didn't know Caroline, but I know Carolyn.
And you knew Claudia. But Claudia must have been much older than you because.
Oh yes, yeah.
Because she married Johnny Pereira, and that's
yeah,
Joan's dad, right?
Joan, yeah.
Joan is you were the same age, so this is a big spread in age.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what other aunt or uncle do you remember next from Alexandria or coming down your father's family?
Well, the most important, the most ones we can't forget, is Mary, Titty Mary. That's Caldera.
She married Caldera, so she was uncle. She was your father's sister.
Yeah, and of course he was quite worthless, as they say, Portuguese, and Papa. He got involved with a woman. Of course, I don't like to tell this to
Titty Mary's husband.
Yeah, he was in Georgetown, and anyway, Papa brought him, rescued them, and brought them to live at Oakland for a while, and then again they had a terrible time. But Titty Mary was a very entertaining person with a lot of suffering. Something happened to her. She was hip shorted and stuff like that. But she could. But she was. And then Titty Umbly. No,
Don't tell me more about Titty Mary. How was she entertaining?
Well, because she had a sharp sense of humor, and sometimes a little bit spicy, whereas Titty Umbly never did.
Right. That's her younger sister.
Yeah. So
Okay,
yeah,
and so Mary and this worthless husband, what was his name? Caldera. What's his first name?
Manuel.
Manuel Caldera.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I know some Alan Caldera is down from that
Yeah, they're
line
all.
because they're all related.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Titi Mary, and um,
She
her
delivered
children.
me. That's why I always remember that, because the district nurse, she was hearing impaired, and Mama said, "She told her, look, don't leave me." And she was in heavy labor. So by the time Titi Mary was living at Oakland at the time, as Mama said, Titi Mary didn't have time to take off her hat, and I was born. So that was where my fame was, that the one that was delivered by Titi Mary. But then finally, she had all these lovely sons, nothing to do. Of course, Sonny was very, very attached to my papa. And I think,
Sonny Caldera.
yeah,
And
because
he ended up living in Brampton area.
yeah, well,
Whatever it is.
eventually he married,
Sonny's your cousin.
yeah, yeah, and Dennis and Manny. Up to now, Manny's still alive in the States. And who else? Well, of course, it was not a terrible tragedy. That's what they don't like to hear me say, but it's a fact. The little Carmen was married at 14. Times were hard. Titi Mary took in this handsome Trinidadian. Of course, he made her pregnant and
He made Carmen
pregnant.
He made the 14-year-old daughter,
Yeah,
Mary's daughter,
and she got one.
Carmen.
She was 19. She died, and she left. She two sons and a daughter in
Carmen's your
Trinidad.
cousin.
Yeah, but it was a very, very tragic thing because this I 14 years. She looked like a first
Did
community.
you know Carmen?
We had her picture on the wall. We those days used to keep.
But did you know her? Did you?
No, but I knew all about her because it was such a shock,
Okay.
you know. But then Zita, do you remember Zita?
I remember of Zita.
Always Zita. Always.
So Zita is whose child?
Zita is Mary's, the youngest one, another daughter. But the thing was, I always had a soft spot for Zita. Zita was out of, let's face it, she liked singing and dancing and flirting with the boys, and of course, there was no scope for that. So this older man, it could be her father or grandfather, came to Pomeroon, asked for hand in marry her. And it was a wrong thing for him to be. He was okay, but he was old. And so Zita got married. She never got sure, and eventually she got a little bit confused. Well, I used to write her all the time, and she was a pretty person.
Again, Zita's your cousin.
Cousin, yeah.
What the same age? Was she older or younger?
No. She was about a year or two younger than Aunt Jean. So she was. But Aunt Jean was busy sewing and cooking and doing what but Zita was more fun, if you know.
We need to keep track of the generations. We talk names.
Yeah, this Zita, yeah.
Sister. Now, let's go back to the aunts. So we've talked about Mary, we talked about Johnny, and who else? I don't know who else we talked about.
Well, now we got to talk about Melina, because she created a story to this day, because she was because she was very, very much Catholic, very religious. There's no doubt about it. She was the kind. She was poor, but she would take somebody from in the river and give them food and give them shelter. And she wanted to be a nun, and she didn't get to be a nun because she was the one that this fellow named Joe Govaya came to look for a wife. And of course, to look for a wife to go to mass. And of course, to her, the other girls were vying, but he chose her and asked her. And she said she was flattered. She was about 16. And so she married him, and she went off to Trinidad. And when she was around 19, she got this one beautiful daughter. The husband died.
What was that daughter's name?
Mary Van Slytman. She married the family of the boy. But all Van Slytman's connected. But anyway, she actually went into the convent, hoping. but there's nobody. I mean, she had a child. I guess these days they were that you take your child with you, but anyway, so this is what she herself told me. The nuns at Muruka, they had this catechist, in native Indian, well, even catechists, we need them now. And there's no doubt he was good at that. He was no good at
What was his name?
Stephen. He became
Stephen.
Campbell. Yeah. Anyway, the nuns approved and tell her, she said, sister said to her, if you don't marry Stephen, I will. Because he had to go up in the interior, and of course he needed a wife. So she married him. It was that never done before, a Buckman. And I think the bishop married them. And so when my mom used to talk, I couldn't imagine it. Papa he was so very fond of that sister. And everybody, because Titi Omri was, let's face it, she could sing and she could teach religion. She was everything. This young widow. And she married this Amerindian man. And so Mama said, Papa was, and she come and she announced it to them. Papa was furious at her. She said when she tried to defend telling him, don't be like that, and stuff like that. She said to her, I suppose you would like to do the same thing. But he was about the biggest gentleman we had in Pomeroon. Like I said, an officer and a gentleman. He spoke well, he knew his religion, and he was a good teacher.
Yes.
Well, I was a little bit in awe of him, but we loved it because she used to regale us with stories and stuff like that, and she could sing. And no, we really enjoyed her. And I mean, there's no doubt about it. She made the biggest impression. She was really an apostle. Well, she married us. What do you call it? Catechist, on that time. And he was good at what he did. But I mean, he didn't, he wasn't with the other men. He was brought up by the nuns. So he was a very polished gentleman. And he had all his children, and they were very bright.
Let's move on to other. Who else should we talk about? Uncles and aunts that you remember your dad's family.
How much of them? Lots of them died. There was another aunt that died. She died quite young. Got married and died quite young.
What was her name?
Claudia. I didn't know her. She married Ribeiro, and she died. Yeah. But there was all these other little.
No, there's more. There's more. He's a big family. Come on, you must remember more aunts.
Not aunts. I'm trying to think. They all had children, boys and girls and stuff like that. Yeah.
What about? Well, the one I know you're talking about is Uncle Rudy's dad, Len.
Yeah.
You could talk a bit.
Oh yes, him. We loved him too. That shows you there's nothing. We thought he was fun. He was nice looking. He had a sense of humor. But now I realize that, mind you, I still feel sorry for him. While we were being entertained by Uncle Lenny, his children were starving, I think, literally, because they came to live on again, in Oakland. The auntie said that house should be called Refuge of Sinners. She's right. It was a nice house, thatched. And I don't know where they used to, because he went up in Burama, and he never amounted to anything. Of course, he died there already. Too much alcohol and all this kind of thing. Tragic. But again, we loved Titi May. She was fun.
Mrs. Uncle Lenny's
wife.
wife.
But Mama loved her too. That was a strange thing. She and Mama really, because she was just the opposite to Titi May. And she would try to counsel Titi May, that type of thing. But she never bad-mouthed her or anything. But how did they live?
Now, the other day we were looking at the show, and the kid was having ice cream for the first time, and you have a memory of this.
Well, I remember. I still think to this day it's the most delicious thing I ever had, because we would have little fairs, the school would organize it, and to have ice cream was like to go to heaven. But they used to make the cream, mix it up with I don't know, probably condensed milk or whatnot, and then they had a churn, and then some people would take and you to make one you pay maybe a shilling or whatever it is for a, but it was the most tasty thing in the world. But you'd only get it first of all if the steamer brought in some ice. Well, they were spicy people, you know what I mean? They were, let's face it, they were, we used to say braggadocio. That name, they were very proud of it, you know, that yeah, and it were very well respected, you know. And so,
Did
but,
you know? Did you know? Now that I think of it, did you know that any of these other, like JJ had two brothers,
mhm,
Antonio and CJ?
yeah,
Did you know either of them?
I knew of them very well. Like I vaguely remember that big house in Georgetown and whatnot. But of course, Mama had a terrible time with them,
Yes.
you know that. And so I knew they were there, and they actually had a shop, and dude went and worked with them. He couldn't get any
In
job,
the whiny.
and yeah, any type of thing. But they didn't pay it, you know, they didn't pay any. We tried to forget about them, but we knew they were cousins, and they knew we were too, you know, that type of thing.
Uncle Clarence mentioned some black cousins.
Yes, we had some black cousins, and I don't know how it went. It was something with grandpa or whatnot. I think somebody married a black woman and bearing two sisters. And I vaguely remember that we had, if Papa had lived, we probably would get to know them. But they knew we were family, but they're down River. And once you separated by down, probably still their Clarence probably still know them.